Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today I am going to be showing you how to make the Urban Tote by Maggy 55. This is a great everyday bag. This is going to be my personal bag. I really enjoyed making it. We have two nice slip pockets here in the front. We have an interior zipper pocket here, and we have interior slip pockets, 3 different compartments. We have some nice purse feet, and we're going to do a zipper end. And I did make some boo-boos along the way, but I was able to work them out, and I recorded those, so hopefully if anyone makes the same mistakes, that the way that I correct them is a teaching and learning experience for you. I appreciate you watching, so stay tuned. The first thing we're going to do is work on our front section. So I have the upper portion of the bag, and I have the pocket lining of the bag, and I'm going to clip those together, which I've pretty much done here. Matched up my center points, and then I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance along here. Now if you notice here, I have some markings. She suggests in the pattern that you go ahead and do at least the 1 inch mark, just so you can keep up with the top and the bottom of this piece. So you're wanting to clip the bottom of your upper exterior piece to your lining, not the top. I have my stitch length set between 4 and 4.5. I'll get my chair up here. And then I am going to stitch all the way across at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and be sure that you are back stitching. At the beginning and the ends of your seams. And we're just going to sew all the way down. And back stitch. And just going to check my seam. Yep, 1/2 inch. Okay, and then we are going to fold this up. We're going to push our seam towards the lining. And we are going to top stitch about 1/4 inch away from our seam here. And I'm not changing my stitch length at all. Okay, and this is going to be your front main panel. Now it appears here that my vinyl stretched a little. It'll be okay. We'll work it into our seam allowance when we put everything together. So then we're going to take our front and our back, and we are going to line those up. Lay them together, and you may have a little extra lining. Down here. And then we're just going to trim this off. So I'm going to take it to my cutting table, trim it off, and I'll be right back. Okay, that ended up being maybe 3/8 of an inch, but now they're the same size. Okay. We're going to set these pieces aside now. We're going to take our front pocket piece and our lining piece, and because of the type of vinyl that I'm using, I want to make sure that my scales are going the same direction. So I'm going to mark on here top just to keep myself straight. So we're lining up the bottom of our front pocket piece with our pocket lining. We're going to clip those together. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me read this before I do it, because I want to make sure my little scales are going the right way. Because I have a directional print on my vinyl, meaning these scales, I'm going to have to attach my pocket lining piece to the top side of my exterior vinyl piece, so that when I follow the directions and fold it over to put them together like so, it will still be going in the same direction as the upper part of my bag. So I hope that makes sense. If you didn't have the scaled texture going on here, it wouldn't matter, but in my case it does matter. So just be cognizant of that when you're making the bag. So we're going to sew this together at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, just as we did before. And because I've noticed my vinyl's creeping on me, I'm going to put it on the bottom side this time. And hopefully the feed dogs will pull in on the vinyl a little more. At least this is what we do in the quilting world. If we have one piece that wants to grow on you. And my clips are on upside down, but that'll be okay too. So sew all the way across the seam. And remember to back stitch. Crept a little bit, but not as much as the first one did. It'll be okay. Alright, so I'm going to open that up. Yes, no, maybe. So we are going to draw a line that is 7 inches up from the bottom. And I'm going to piecemeal my line here. And then another one that is 9 inches up from, well, I did that just totally backwards, but it worked out. One that is 9 inches up from the bottom. Then we're going to take some double-sided tape and place it along the inside of both of these lines. Okay, before we do that, we are going to go ahead and top stitch this down real quick. Forgot that step. I'm so used to using the other side of my foot to measure with, so I'm going to turn it around this way. This toe on my foot, see this side over here? It's a little bit wider than this over here, which is probably one reason this ended up being a little bit wider than a 1/4 inch. I may take that out and redo it, and I may not. So you're turning your seam down towards the lining. Ah, much better. I'll probably take that one out and redo it. Yeah, I like that much better. So I'll redo that one. Just a second. We are going to go ahead and put our double-sided tape to the inside of these lines we drew. and to the inside of this one. Okay, y'all, I am so sorry. My camera had a meltdown. Internal memory was full. Did not realize it. And that happened while we were working on the front pocket. So I believe the last thing you saw me do was put down the double-sided tape on the front pocket external piece. And next you fold this over so that the bottoms meet up, and then you really give this a good press for the double-sided tape to stick, and give yourself a good crease up here along the edge. And then you do a top stitch at 1/4 of an inch from the edge, and then at 1/2 an inch from the edge. Again, I do apologize. It's been a while since I did a video. I tried to do all my checks and balances and apparently forgot that I had some pre-recorded stuff on the camera. Totally my bad. I've dumped it and now we're ready to go. So I'm going to pull my pattern back up. I have it here on my iPad. If you see me keep reaching over, I apologize. Also, while I was dumping my camera, I did go back in and fix this. My OCD kicked in and it was bothering me. So I took out the stitching and redid the top stitching at 1/4 of an inch. So I'll set that aside. The next thing you want to do is you want to make a mark down the center of your front pocket. I just have an old style Choco pen here. Found my center and drew a line. And let's see. Now we are going to grab our upper front piece, and we are going to come down 4.5 inches from the top. I need to get another ruler. Camera issue has me all out of sorts now. So I am going to come down from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4.5 inches. Again, I'm going to take my little chalk wheel here. I'm just going to place a mark at the edge of both sides. Got my pocket. I dropped it. And we are going to place our pocket right up to those marks. I am going to try to center mine according to the pattern in my vinyl. I tried to fussy cut all these pieces because obviously you see the pattern, bigger scales here, smaller scales here, and I didn't want a piece that was, you know, offset in any type of way. So I'm going to line those up as best I can. This should leave your bottoms lined up. And then I'm going to come along and give it a few clips. Now, also, before we do that, I'm just going to clip the one side. We're going to come back with some double-sided tape, and we are going to put that down the center of the inside of our pocket. And I'm actually going to eyeball mine because I know I have my scales lined up. My machine doesn't care if it sews through double-sided tape. And I can check it. It's pretty much centered. This one's a little wonky, but it will be okay. Then we're going to lay this down and line it back up with our marks and put in some clips. Okay, and we are going to start at the bottom. Just put a couple more. And we're going to top stitch on either side of our center line. We're going to stitch up from the bottom, and we're going to come up to this top stitch right here we previously did, go over a few stitches, and then right back down. And we're doing this about 1/8 of an inch away from that center line. I'm going to take my time here. I don't want to shoot past the stitch line up top here. And because of my toe, my foot is closed, I'm going to have to really go slow. And I may even have to make an adjustment here, which I am. Come forward just a little bit, needle down, and then I'm going to pivot and come over a couple stitches, needle down and pivot, and then right back down the other side. Again, 1/8 of an inch away from that center line we drew. Okay. And back stitch. Okay, and now we have the center of our front pocket stitched down. And we're going to take the edge of the front pocket and we're going to move it over. I'll show you here. Maybe zoom in. Whoops, wrong way. So we're going to take the edge here and we're going to move it in about 1/8 of an inch. So we're moving it in from the side. That's going to make a little extra room up in here, and it will not pull in your seam. So pull it away. Then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So I'm going to pull it away from the edge about 1/8 of an inch, and you may have to kind of hold it. I'm using waterproof canvas and this vinyl, and they're both a little slippery, but when I start, I'm going to baste all the way around. I'm going to make sure that I hold this over at least 1/8 of an inch to get started. And now I'm going to back stitch. And then I'm just going to continue all the way around. And I'm doing about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, just basting it together. Okay, when you're coming up the other side, just remember to make sure that when you get up to the top of the pocket here, you have pulled it in about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, just to leave this slight little I don't even have the right word for it. It's got a little give there. And up to the top and back stitch. Okay, so now what we want to do is right here in the middle of our 2 lines of top stitching, and in the middle of these 2 lines of top stitching, we are going to put a rivet. So I'm going to go put a rivet, and I'll be right back. Okay, you can see here I've got my rivet in. So now what we're going to do is we are going to, if you have a nameplate, this would be the perfect time to do that. I don't have Craft Text, which is recommended in the pattern. You want to reinforce this area up here where you put your nameplate, as well as where your rivets go for your straps. So I went ahead and drew my line that is in the pattern that's 5/8 inches down from the top, and then I cut my Decaville light, the size mentioned in the pattern, and I just used my heat press on a little bit lower heat and press this on. I did it both to our front piece and the back piece. So you want to do the same thing on the back. is mark that line 5/8 of an inch from the top, and then you're going to place your craft text or Decaville light right up against that line. And then be sure to remark where your rivet holes are going to go. I'm actually going to go ahead and go punch my rivet holes, and I am going to put a nameplate on the front of my bag. Now, under most, oh yeah, I wanted to tell you too. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place today. If you feel when you put your rivet in that your material is not thick enough for the size rivet post you have, you can add a little piece of vinyl to the back. And this will take up some of that extra space so you don't totally squash your rivets and ruin something. So that's all I did here. Took a piece of the vinyl that I'm using and folded it over and just stuck it on the rivet. Now what I'm going to do is measure down 3 inches. Actually, I'm going to, well, I've got my center marked up there, but I think I am going to draw a mark from my center just on my Decaville here. Then that way I know I'm pretty much going to get my nameplate centered. And I'm going to measure down 3 inches from the top. Hope you guys can see this. 3 inches from the top. Not the top of the Decaville or the craft text. Okay. And I'm just gonna take my plate here, kind of see if I can get that centered. And I'm actually looking at the marks on my ruler to find the center as I moved. Which is there. There and there. Then I kind of like to see where my washer's gonna sit and draw lines. And you will notice too that my nameplate is silver. I haven't ordered any other colors yet. And my hardware, which is minimal, it's just rivets, is black nickel. I don't normally mix them. However, in this case, I'm going to. It's just because that's all I have at the moment. No. Okay. Turn it over and see if I can see my lines. Sometimes I can't. So if I go through the front, I can kind of eyeball and see where it is. Make sure your nameplate is right side up. I have put it in backwards before. Okay, and put on your washer. And fold them over. Make sure you're kind of straight. And there you go. You can glue a piece of the vinyl across here, or you could use some duct tape. I'm actually think I'm going to get a piece of vinyl and glue it down. I'm going to use a piece, just a random piece, and I'm going to cut it. I'm going to be using some Fabri-Tac glue. This dries pretty fast. Just cover that up like so and let that dry. And while that's drying, I'm going to step away and go punch my holes. I just use a hand press or hand punch. Okay, I have my holes punched now. And we are going to align our tops. Our top center. And then we're going to clip down both sides. And we are going to sew the sides at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Be sure to back stitch. And move my ruler. I'm going to knock something over. And back stitch at the bottom. We'll do the same thing on the other side. And my clips are upside down. I think I want to line this up a little better than I have it. back stitch. Trim your thread as you go. Okay. Next, we are going to reinforce this area right here. This is where the top of the pocket is. So I'm just coming over from my original stitch line. I'm going to come forward, come backwards, and I am kind of moving my fabric around a little bit, so it's not just a straight up and down pattern. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. That's going to bug me. Okay. Now, we're going to come in and we're going to cut right above where we made those reinforcing stitches. And we're going to trim, or we're going to make a cut. Like so. Because we're going to be opening up the seam. We're going to come over and do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so right above those stitches we just made. Okay. Then we're going to come along and we are going to put some 1/4 inch tape along the edge here. Up here. We're going to turn it over and do the other side. I can't tell if you guys can see me or not. I've moved the camera. When I was messing with it earlier. Okay. Okay. Alright, and then we're going to come in and we are going to trim this out at an angle. So, you're just trying to prevent having a bulky seam up here. So I'm just kind of coming out at an angle. Sort of down to that 1 inch mark. Close counts. Okay, and then we're going to peel off our tape. And we are going to fold these open. And then we're going to turn it over and do the same thing on the other side. It don't want to play nice. And up here as well. Okay, so here's essentially what you should have. This just kind of takes some of the bulk out of that edge up there. Alright. Now we are going to put double-sided tape all the way around the very top edge. Okay. Just trying to open that seam. We have that little skinny section. And come back to where I started. I did overlap a little bit, but I can peel up the one side just a little and then stick that down. Then what we are going to do is we are going to peel off our tape, fold this over to meet that 1 inch mark. That we drew in the very beginning to denote the top of the bag. Yep. And again, if you have a roller or some type of tool that will allow you to really get a good crease in there, you will want to use that in this particular area as well. As you can see, for me, it's popping up, but we will win. Ta-da! Alright. So, press that down really, really well. All the way around. And now we are going to put in the bottom of our bag. Now we're going to put our bottom in. I have Decoville Heavy fused to the bottom of my piece. The pattern calls for Bontex, I believe, that you put in after you've sewn your base in. I don't have that particular bag stiffener, so I just used Decoville Heavy, and I went ahead and fused it down with my heat press. Before I did that, though, I marked a 1/2 inch on all 4 sides, and you may not be able to see it, but I found my centers. I just fold mine in half and give it a little snip. I kept my Decoville Heavy out of the seam allowance, and I also put in my bag feet. Bag feet are not required. I just wanted bag feet in this one. So I've gone ahead and done that as well. So what you want to do is you want to take the centers and you're going to line them up. Clip them. And we are gonna sew from this corner here all the way across till we come to this corner. And this is our pin marks where we did that in the very beginning. And now I am going to push mine inside the bag, at least for this side. And bring it over. And I'm going to drop my needle right on that intersection where my pin marks meet. And then I'm just going to sew all the way across the bottom. Be sure to back stitch. And then I'm going to be sure to stop. Ooh, that was perfect. At the intersection on the other end. And don't forget to back stitch. Wrong scissors. Didn't feel right. Okay. Then we'll take the other side. We'll line up the centers. And there's markings too that you would have made during the prep work on each end of the exterior pieces. If you've cut everything correctly, the base should line up with those marks. The end of the base should line up with those marks. This stuff is so slippery. I might should have chose something else. But we are going with it. Have to use 100 clips. Okay. So again, I'm going to line my needle up at that intersection. Be sure to backstitch. Yep. And backstitch. Okay. So now you have the sides of your bottom end. What you're going to want to do next is we are going to cut our exterior. So right where your seam ended, not on the lines, but where your seam ended, you just want to give it a little wiggle room. Okay. And I'm cutting right where I ended, one little snip before and one little snip after. And I'm running my little thread scissors doing this. Okay, flip it over and do the same. We're not cutting our base fabric. Alright, so now we can match our sides. So we found the center of our base. We can open up that seam allowance there. Clip this in place. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to sew from intersection of the line to intersection of the line. Not quite as easy as the longer one, but you can do it. back stitch. And then one more time on this side. And this one keeps slipping on me. There we go. Okay. Oh, that's a workout. Alright, so once you get that done, we're going to come back and we're going to sew 1/8 of an inch away from our first stitch line. That's just going to give it a little bit more stability. And we're going to go all the way around. Okay, I'm just going to pivot. Come down one of the short sides. Needle down, gonna pivot again. Cut these, trim those threads out of my way. Pivot again. Make sure your needle's down before you do the pivot. Lift your foot, pivot, and come on down. And then back stitch. And I'm actually going to turn the corner and make another right there. Alright, so you can kind of take a look-see in your bag. Make sure you don't have any puckers or any missed spots, which I don't. So you're just going to trim the corners, just the corners, and you don't want to cut into your stitches. Just get close, but don't cut them. Alright, so the next thing you would do if you were using the same type materials is you would actually put your stiffener on. You would put your foam. I am going to use foam to give a little cushion in the bottom of my bag. So you would glue your foam to the stiffener. I did not do that in this instance. I'm going to do it now and then just let it sit to dry while we work on something else. But after that's done, basically your exterior is finished and you can move on to the lining. So again, I'm just going to use some Fabri-Tac. I'm going to be very generous with it. I'm going to go around the entire perimeter. And then obviously throughout the center. Now I would definitely not do this much if I were going to be placing this directly on vinyl, because you can see it through the vinyl. It leaves little lumps. Okay. So I'm going to put my hand in and just kind of smash it on. It does give it a really nice feel in the bottom. So I really like that idea. Okay. I'm going to let that dry for a little while. And then we'll come back, we'll turn it out, and then we'll move on to the lining. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn the outer bag out. So you just kind of want to push in. Put one hand inside, push in with one corner, and then gently turn the bag out. Okay, you want to push out, make sure you push out those corners. can come and kind of massage it. To get those nice crisp edges. But there we go so far. I'm excited. Since we're using waterproof canvas for the interior, it's also going to get the bag a little bit more structure. I'm excited. You've got some really thick seams here because of the pockets, but with use and a little bit of massaging, I think those will work out just fine. Look how this lined up. I'm just really excited. All the way through to the bottom. Yes, I did. Okay, guys, I'm gonna go take a break, and I'll be back later. We'll work on the lining. Whoops.